Mhm. Hi, you guys. Hi, Armand. We
Hello,
have a couple
hello.
of minutes. Armand, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to be admitting people, but I'm going to be on mute for the next couple of minutes. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.
Will I be able to share screen once we're
Yes,
starting? All right,
absolutely.
sounds good.
Absolutely.
Let's rock and roll.
You could start sharing your screen if you want to as well. Hi, everybody. We're gonna start in a couple of minutes. I'm just gonna allow people to still join in. Feel free to put your name in the chat. Tell us where you're from. We're supposed to be starting at 1:30, but I'm gonna give it about 3 to 5 minutes after 1:30, just to allow people to be able to come back from lunch. Oh, people are still joining in. We're going to give it a couple more minutes. Oh, wow. I see some people from San Diego. I see somebody from New Orleans. That's really cool. Love this. Okay. Hello, Vista Hill in the house. SDCC, first five. Awesome. So glad you guys are here. What does SDCC stand for? San Diego Children's Center? Mm, you guys are awesome. All right. We're going to give it a one more minute and then I'm going to start with introductions. Hello, YMCA. Hey. All right, everybody. Well, my name is Nicole Chung, and I'm going to be helping moderate this session today. I'm from San Diego Youth Services. I am their Youth and Cultural Specialist. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And when Armand is completed and he's ready, then we will address all of your questions. I'm just going to do an introduction of our speaker. Our speaker's name is Armand L. King. He is a survivor of toxic lifestyles who has become a leader in his community and around the world. For the past 12 years, Armand King has been dedicated to positively impacting communities and individuals through his work as a successful nonprofit builder, consultant, and author of books and curriculums. He is also a sought-after keynote speaker and trainer, frequently invited by experts from all over the globe to share his expertise. In addition to his work as a motivational speaker, Armand King is a successful entrepreneur who helps others build and grow their own businesses. He is skilled at helping people develop their projects and build strong teams. Currently, Armand King served on the San Diego's Gang Prevention and Intervention Commission and is currently a member of the San Diego Mayor's Black Advisory Board. With his powerful message and ability to change lives, Armand King is a force for good in the world. I am so excited, Armand, that you are here. I am from the same neighborhood that he is from. And so not only have I heard good things about him, I've had the pleasure of meeting him. He is just as amazing in person as he is going to be on this Zoom session. And so without further ado, here's Armand.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Truly appreciate it, and I just hope to be I'm blessed to be here. And as we'll get into the intro, you'll see how truly blessed I am to be here, as we all are. If you woke up this morning and your eyelid blinked and your fingers moved and your toes moved, it's already been a glorious day already. Everything after that was extra. As we go into this, I'm going to start with the introduction on myself. And through that introduction, you'll get to know more about me in a nutshell, but also you'll hear within that introduction the importance of this topic and how important it is to me. And I assume most of the people on here are in some kind of way involved with education. So that's an assumption, like I said. And I'm not going to assume that you have not already been exposed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As you know, post George Floyd, I don't know anybody that hasn't been in some sort of class, lecture, or heard something about diversity. So I'm sure there's a lot of experts on here, and I'm going to, throughout this presentation, there'll be points where I'm asking upon you, your opinion. Please don't be the kid in the classroom who doesn't want to raise his hand, her hand, say something. Please, let's interact, let's be engaged, and let's help each other, because I don't claim to be the end all or the expert of it all. Welcome. And I'm glad we got a nice group here. We're going to work together today. So I'll start off with, why should you listen to me? And I wish a lot of more presenters ask that question. Why should we listen to you? You know, I often say sometimes, you know, I don't like PowerPoints. I'd rather point to the power than use a PowerPoint and a bunch of bar graphs that show that look good and they're fancy, but they don't necessarily reflect the true work. But so I'm going to use these slides from time to time. I'm sure all of these slides are available for you, but these are more so for me to just make sure I stay on task, okay, with what I want to get across to you all today. And with this, the subject of cultural competency and mentorship, you know, I lean on that phrase. You may have heard it, but each one teach one, each one reach one. And, you know, to me, mentorship is a crucial element often missing in the lives of numerous at-risk youth, an element that could literally save their life. Marginalized and underserved communities, which I've served for over a decade now, they're often viewed by people that aren't from those communities as a different place, or the other world, as I call it. You know, in this other world, a mentor who is culturally competent and versed can be the difference between life and death for a youth, for an individual. Mentorship is also extremely magical, especially for youth growing up in that quote unquote other world. Youth in this world, often, you know, as they grow up like myself, and I've worked in the schools, they often see themselves only as potentially being an entertainer or a rapper. And then that's like around middle school age. And once you get out of middle school and you enter into high school, the only things you can really see yourself being then, and not that you even see yourself being, but you get wrapped up in, is some sort of hustle, drugs, gangs, and not to put a blanket over everybody who grows up in this community, because there are people who actually have it better off and don't see those as options of their life. But I'm right now and today, and I'm a focus on, and what I do focus on are those most at risk. Like myself, from ages 13 to 15 years old, I was a homeless youth. And not homeless meaning I didn't I slept downtown on the street, or I was in a tent on Skid Row or under a bridge. Homeless meaning I didn't have a place to call my own. Bounced house to house, room to room, couch to couch, floor to floor, for those years. And until, you know, until the people I stayed with really just they couldn't take my family anymore. It was myself, my mother. I had two cousins that lived with me, and my disabled sister who lived with us also, as my mom shuffled us around through these houses. My family moved, like I said, from one friend's home to another. During this time, I recall a time when I used to get really hungry, and I didn't know how to fulfill that hunger. And I stayed in the area of San Diego at this particular moment when I just couldn't take being hungry anymore. And I would go to the local Jack in the Box drive-through, and I would hide around the corner by the trash can until they passed food out the window, and I would run through there and I would snatch the bag. I did this several times. Luckily, I did not get caught any of those times, because I would have just been that youth that was caught up in the system, later on judged as somebody who was a criminal or a thief. But no, I would take that food and actually go back home and give it to my family. And it made me feel like a man. I'm 12, 13 years old at this time. I remember one time when I kind of knew if I continued to do this, I might get caught up. And I was hungry this time. I didn't know where my mom was. And I walked to a payphone to call my biological father. And I asked him to send us money for food. His response to me would shake my life up for years to come. And his response was, I'm not your dad. Pretend I'm not your dad anymore. This is what he said to me. When I hung up that phone with him and went back home, I just knew at that young age I had to step up and now to be the man of my family. And despite not knowing how I was exactly going to do that. By my freshman year, my great mom, who was an amazing woman, amazing human being, she finally got our family stabilized and moved us into an apartment. During that year, my ninth grade year in high school, starting high school, is when I met a group of friends who would become the best friends and the most meaningful people in my life. We shared, common interests. All of us in some kind of way were gang affiliated. Some of the group was foster youth. Some of the group had, all of us had no fathers. Not one of out of my 8 best friends was there a father in the household. And some of them, like I said, had no parents at all. Over the next few years, our bond would become so tight that we became brothers. Some people would have labeled us a gang. We'd rather call ourselves a clique during that time. And just a group of young males who quickly, like I said, became brothers. At 16, that group, 15 when we first met, by 16 years old was the first time we had faced a extreme tragedy with the loss of one of us, a young man by the name of Lawrence Smith, who was fatally shot in front of the apartment buildings where he used to hang out. And I just still remember that moment, that feeling of kissing his cold, stiff forehead when he laid in that casket. That moment I will never forget. And looking back, at that time, I realized the lack of adult support that was there. No one was there to console us, inquire about our well-being, offer therapy, or be that mentor that we desperately needed. Nor did we as youth know how desperately we needed that mentor. This cycle of mourning became routine. You bury a friend on Friday, stuff ourselves with substances throughout the weekend, trying to cover up for that pain. And then by Monday, we were back in school, looked at and expected to study, looked at and expected to listen to the teacher, not to fall off, not to be playing around, not knowing we just buried a very, very close friend to us, and nobody even bothering to ask. That cultural competency, that knowing what's going on in the neighborhood of the youth that we're serving, to see, why is he off? Why is she acting like this? And this cycle continued continuously throughout middle school, high school, rinse and repeat, copy and paste, all the way until graduation, if you were lucky enough to make graduation. A mentor with lived experience would have been invaluable during those times. A teacher or a staff, a youth advocate with cultural competency would have been invaluable at that time. One might ask me, like, how do I know mentorship is magical? And how do I know how important it is? Not because me and my friends had mentors, but honestly, because none of us did. Each one of us had to reach and teach each other. We had to grow up and teach each other how to be men. Somewhere around 21 years old, I ended up being incarcerated for a nonviolent cannabis charge. I served 3 years in federal prison, 3 years on probation, and was stretched out across the United States between 9 institutions: Florida, Oklahoma, Atlanta, Oregon, for a nonviolent first offense, all over 10 pounds of weed. That's a whole different conversation. We'll have that for another day, because now it's on the stock market and perfectly legal. But anyway, that's not this talk. I'll save that one, right? But about 2 months before I came home from prison, my brother, friend, Richard, my group, we called him Fantastic. He was murdered by 4 youth on a shooting spree, driving around in their parents' SUV. I think they had shot 12 people between San Diego and Los Angeles, and they had killed my brother. His death was something that I'll say really, really shattered my life. And man, I miss Fantastic to this day, like it was yesterday. Upon my release from prison, I wasn't suddenly a changed man or ready to be a community activist or devoted to community service. I was torn. I had 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the street still. And yet something inside of me was shifting. And that's when a great mentor named Basil, my big bro, I call him, entered into my life. You know, he was slightly older than me, but and I don't even know if he knew what he was doing, but he was relatable to me. He was able to engage with me on a level, even though to me, we're both from the same neighborhood. We went to the same high school. He's like I said, a few years older than me, but he was culturally competent. And sometimes it doesn't mean you're not that ethnicity. We were the same ethnicity, but he was what I would call, you know, and we don't use the word, he was a square, is what we called it. You know, I'm trying to be politically correct here. Back in the day, we would call him another word, but those words are cool now. It's cool to be a nerd now. People want to be nerds now. He was one of those, but from the hood, you know, and he wrapped around me when I came home from prison. He didn't shun me. He saw magic. He saw greatness in me that I didn't even see in myself. And as soon as I came home, he put me up in a house, literally. He gave me a car. He gave me a good job, and he started mentoring me. First time I ever heard of this dude named Tony Robbins. You all might have heard of him. But he was pumping Tony Robbins in my head. I'm like, who does that from the hood? But it worked. And then when he saw at first, I would, you know, that pill might was a little hard for me to swallow listening to the Tony Robbins guy. So then he knew that, and he was culturally competent enough to realize, hold on, there's somebody else who's saying the same things as Tony Robbins. Excuse me, and it was Russell Simmons, and he introduced me to this Russell Simmons DVD. And I would listen to that, and it was somebody that I respected, but his goal was to get the message to me. It didn't matter who the tool was. He needed to break through my brick wall. And then he did something else. Oh my, I wasn't even thinking about this. I forgot about this until right this moment right now as I'm going through this. This was not in my, I promise this was not in my talk today. But Basil would put Tony Robbins, oh my God, Andrew Carnegie, he would put these individuals over rap beats. He loved making music. He would put them over rap beats, knowing Armand is going to listen a little more with a good beat. But the message was coming. That man was, I don't even, he was smart. He was smart. I think, and now later on, this was years ago. This was 2002, 3. Now you can go on YouTube and go to look up, I think his name is Ray Smooth, and he does this also. There's people who do this, but he was doing this back then. So after giving me a car, a house, you would think, how could a person mess that up, right? With guidance like that, you know, but I still was fumbling. But he stuck in there with me until he said, Armand, you're going to have to go. So I can't cuss, but he told me something that I had to go do because he wasn't going to continue to go down this rabbit hole with me. I wasn't ready yet. Around 2010, myself and Baz, we owned a restaurant together, and I was helping to manage it. And during this time, it came to my attention that my group of friends and I, who created our clique 15 years previous, not only had that clique and that crew continue to live on and survive, but they had expanded. Where originally there was only 8 of us, now there were hundreds spread throughout San Diego County. When I first heard this information, I didn't really believe it. I said, when I was told this by somebody, a family member, I said, bring them to me. I did not believe this happened, that this existed. And, you know, true disbelief. And I said, bring them to me. And when he did, about two dozen young men came to my restaurant. Some women came to my restaurant, and they filled it up, ages 16 to 24 years old. And they came into this restaurant with a respect for me. I didn't even know who these kids were, but they had a respect for me, looked up to me like I was their brother, their mentor, somebody that they were yearning for and didn't even know they were yearning for. And when I looked into their eyes, I saw my friends that I had lost along the way. I saw myself. I saw my brother Fantastic that was no longer living. I didn't know how I was going to help them, but I knew something had to be done to break this continual cycle of death and incarceration that had been impacting my community my entire life. At that time, I had no aspirations to be a mentor, a youth advocate, a community leader. My dreams were simple. I wanted to throw reggae concerts. I wanted to draw comic books. I wanted to love my life because I was selfish. I didn't know I was not here to help anybody. And I wanted to fry fish. That's what I did. But the saying, let God take the wheel. Well, God didn't just take the wheel from me. He snatched it from me. He threw me in the trunk and took me on the ride for the next 13 years of my life. That's what happened to me. And since then, I've been dedicated to creating effective programs, curriculums aimed at saving at-risk individuals and supporting neglected communities. And this work has been my life's mission. I've had the privilege of mentoring numerous individuals over the years, seeing the magic of mentorship and how it can change lives firsthand. A great example of this is a mentee of mine named Vincent. Vincent, through his federal court advocacy I did for him, I supported him through legal challenges and his transition from prison back into the real world, helping him overcome his life of crime. In recent days, Vincent has graduated college and is on his way to becoming a substance abuse counselor, now using his lived experience and to mentor other at-risk youth, totally embodying resilience and transformation. Nothing beats those stories when you can take somebody from ground zero and bring them to that point of their life. It's been years of me taking on others' pain. I have yet to really address mine. Out of those 8 best friends I talked about earlier, I'm one of 4 that still remain standing today. Most of the people that mean something to me are no longer living. And it's imperative that I say this, and this is my intro. And through here, I hope you are catching pieces that I'm dropping, because we haven't even started yet. But man, the pain that I've been dealing with as a mentor, as a community advocate, taking on others without ever really addressing mine. It's been full steam ahead with the work, and recently, in recent years, I never really knew what was coming with that quarantine, the pandemic. And I'll say this too, because as we're addressing people, and I was just in a call the other day with California Violence Prevention Network with a bunch of youth advocates and groups throughout the state, and everyone singing the same song. And I know this is the song that's sung across the nation with the uptick of violence, substance abuse, mental health that has skyrocketed. And 100% this came from us being sat down and having that silence of quarantine and that pandemic all across the board, not just at-risk communities, but everybody felt this in some manner. So those that were more at risk, more already at the bottom of the totem pole, their the problems are only exasperated even more. When 2021 hit for me personally, I call that the great year of loss, staggering loss. Every single month of the year of 2021, I lost a loved one, at least one, some months multiple. I lost 7 mentees that year, 2 blood cousins that year, and a 14-year-old kid by the name of Jesse. Jesse had been avoiding my outreach for months. He was on the run. He was on probation. He was out on the run, and he was avoiding me because he knew what I was going to say to him. Until one night around 2:45 in the morning, Jesse called me, and he told me that day that I'm more than a mentor to him. I'm more like a father and a brother to him. Before we got off that call, he told me, Armand, can you please call my mother in the morning and let her know that I love her? I said he was on the run. He wasn't at home. So I said, yeah, I promise I'll call your mom in the morning. I'll let her know. Yet a few hours later, Jesse was found unresponsive. He had died of an overdose, his 14-year-old kid. Man, when he called me, he knew he was dying. And he wasn't calling me to have that jolly conversation we had on FaceTime. He was calling me to say goodbye. I didn't know it. So I extend, my deepest, gratitude for those mentors and those of you that are on the line that are even taking this time out of your life and your day to hopefully learn something more, to advance what you're probably already doing so you can do this work better, because I don't think you got a choice. You didn't have to be here in this session. So hopefully you're here seeking some kind of advancement in the work you're doing and ultimately to help save lives. because we are in a 911 state of emergency right now. And if we do not realize that we need to sharpen up and to help people, which we're in this work to do, to live better lives as much as possible, then we're in the wrong field. Mentorship isn't just a role, it's a transformative journey. And it doesn't mean we have to be the CEO or run this organization, or it doesn't even mean you have to be totally culturally competent. Help, but get as much information and knowledge as you can so we can do this. So we can all embrace the ethos of each one teach one, each one reach one, and we can do this. All right, so let's move on. Next slide, please. So that's me. All right. And so hopefully that just wanted to give you guys a breakdown and a slight introduction to who I am. And hopefully you can feel within the words that I just spoke to you, this is more than just a PowerPoint slide presentation. To me, it's a matter of life and death for the people that we are serving. And I am tired of, Jesse's name is tattooed on my arm right now, right above my cousin who died that year. I have several names that are running down my arm right now, and I'm running out of space. So while I have this energy and I'm blessed to be here, my job now is to help others do this job and to help others more. So I will read this first part on this introduction to cultural competency. But moving forward, like I said, we may not be reading directly off these slides. If that's what you're used to, I apologize. You will get them and my contact information if there's additional questions that pop up later. But cultural competence refers to the ability of an individual or an organization to understand, appreciate, and interact effectively with people from cultures or belief systems different from their own. This concept involves recognizing and respecting the diverse values, histories, languages, and experiences found in various cultural backgrounds. Yes, indeed. So in what translation of that, the more you understand who you're working with, who you're helping, the better you are at reaching them and saving that life. Because one thing's for sure, over time, I know, there's people who don't look like me. I consider myself a lived experience expert. There's people out there that most people out there that don't come from lived experience, that have these at-risk youth or individuals that don't look like them, don't come from the same backgrounds, but you have the heart and the passion to help them. And because you don't look like them or other barriers, or you don't come from their background, this person might automatically be blocking you. Because how could you understand me if you're not from here? That's the thought. Even though me and you could be saying the same exact thing. But that doesn't mean, and I don't want people to not help, but get as much and as many tools on your tool belt to reach them. Do as much as you can to understand them, and so you can help better. And so when that kid may challenge you, or you may say something that makes them realize, oh shoot, maybe they do understand me. So that it's all on continual education. And it's not even just like I said, an ethnicity thing. Even with myself, my hair is going gray right now. I work with 12-year-olds. They're not looking at me like they did 10, 15 years ago. I'm uncle now. And so I'm not, look, as much as I don't mind speaking and teaching, I want to help that 12-year-old. So I know a 12-year-old is looking up to a 16, 17-year-old. That's cultural competency. I know that. That 16-year-old is looking up and listening to the direction of the 19, 20-year-old. So but why would I not train that next generation to do the work? Because I want to impact it. It's not all about, I'm Armand, listen to me. I want to hold this position. Pass the torch before the torch is burnt out. We find it sometimes people are clutching onto a burnt out torch. We don't even want it anymore. I got to move this smaller. Hold on one second. All right. Different aspects of diversity. You have race and ethnicity, which I believe a lot of us have been learning about over through this post George Floyd murder era, cultural and subculture, and language. So race and ethnicity. Not assuming, but I'm hoping so. By now, we do realize that there are other races and ethnicities out there, right? But even amongst those, there are subcultures and cultures that we should and need to understand. Just because a person is African American or Black doesn't mean they're all the same. So to better address people in these different cultures and ethnicities, take it a step further. You know, there's subcultures within the culture. Do you understand um, the hip hop culture? We'll take hip hop first for consideration. So hip hop, and that hip hop actually transcends race and ethnicity. Hip hop may be the most widespread, most powerful music source around the world. You can go to the smallest corner of China right now, and there's hip hop. There's a whole bus system. I forgot the place in Africa where all the buses are named after American rappers. Like, do you understand the culture enough? And even once again, to myself, believe me, I am not an ageist at all. But I love hip hop. I was raised on hip hop, but I can't expect this young kid that I'm working with to like what I liked back in 1986. They don't. And I can't go at them with, oh, what do you listen to? That's not hip hop, and terrorizing what they like now. No, if I'm trying to be effective and save this life, I got to listen to what they listen to. So that comes with questions. I ask them, who's your favorite rapper right now? Who are you listening to? Language, understanding language, and that ties in with the culture and subculture. No, I should believe me. As hard as I've been trying to learn Spanish for the past 20 years, I probably know 20 words. I'm learning a lot more with my daughter now, but shoot, I probably know 20 words total. So expecting you to learn the language isn't the ideal. That'd be great. But language, what I mean in this standpoint is that cultural language, understanding if you're working with these at-risk populations and you're a teacher or a youth advocate and you don't understand what they're saying right in front of you, get help, get a translator, and they're speaking English, right? So understanding the importance of recognizing diversity in a mentorship relationship is crucial. But like I said, I want to hone in on the subcultures and the cultures within the different races and ethnicities, and understanding those as well, not to neglect them. So barriers to cultural competency and mentorship, common challenges and misconceptions. There's many of those. You know, like I said, sometimes people say, well, you come from this certain neighborhood, I'm assuming you're like this. And that's a problem we've had with, in the past and currently with different law enforcement agencies and just in judges, and just assuming. We can't assume. And my mom used to have a saying, when you assume, and you may know the saying, I'm not going to say it here, but don't assume, and get more understanding. Identifying your own biases. I have biases. I'm admit it. I was raised with biases. Grandparents passed these things on. My great grandmother passed these things on. Media subconsciously giving me these biases. Walking through the grocery store aisle and seeing magazines that depicted people in a certain way embedded my brain with biases. So identify your own and don't be in denial. Once you would, like, was it, I think it's the AA, but you got to admit you're an alcoholic before you can actually address the situation. So if we're living in a state of denial, we're not going to get past that. So there's some strategies to ensure fair and unbiased mentoring. Once you check these biases, and I would even write them down, like what biases do I have? And once you can write it down and look at it, now when they pop up in your brain, when you're doing the work that you're doing and they come up, you check yourself. It wasn't overnight that you learned and gained these biases. It's not going to be overnight that you get rid of them, because as you're fighting to get rid of them, media hasn't stopped implanting those in your brain. Your family might not be trying to let go of biases, and you go home to these conversations, you hear them. Your work environment still may have these biases, but we can't control anybody outside of us. We can get control of ourselves. So, first question, what are some examples of cultural misunderstandings? Somebody, before I do the teacher and call on somebody, please give me an example of a cultural misunderstanding. I think you can unmute. Anybody but Precious J. Hubbard.
You definitely can unmute.
Nobody. Room full of teachers and no. Is this what happens in the classroom,
Oh,
Hubbard?
someone says Gen Z is entitled.
Oh,
Victoria.
okay. Thank you for that one. All right, can I hit that? So every generation complains about every next generation. Yes, some people are entitled, but I guarantee you if you go back to whatever generation you were in, there was some entitled people there too. They say Gen X is lazy, but I got some uncles that's lazy as hell. They ain't Gen X. There was lazy people there. Let's stop. And if this next generation is entitled, guess who made them? Okay, we raised that generation. All right. So who's the finger? You know, there's two ways to point a finger. I can go that way or I can go that way. I like the thumb. All right. The impact of the impact of culture on communication. I like the saying communication rules the nation. You know, in your workplace, with the people you're working with, you got to understand too within yourself not to take things personal. Not everybody comes from your background or understands how you understand. So you have to be on a level of wanting to understand the people around you also, and don't get in your feelings. Get your emotions off your sleeve, and and try to work with people, especially in this work that we do. We need each other, and there's not a bunch of people doing this work. And ultimately, once again, I'll keep going back to that. We're doing this to save lives. All right, the impact of culture on communication, and know that our culture and the where we came from can impact and change the way we communicate with others. And so once again, it's that self-reflection, and we got to continuously self-reflect. Do I yell? Am I understanding? Where did I get this from? Was my mother, was my father, was my guardian? Did I grow up in an environment that taught me to do these certain activities and to be this certain way? We got to think about these things. Tips for effective cross-cultural communication. Develop cultural awareness. That we could be in a meeting for, I'm grazing over these things, but I got an hour. But developing cultural awareness, that in itself is studying for days, for weeks, but it's something that you should actively pursue. Practice active listening. Are you listening, or are you just take quiet until you have the opportunity to say something yourself? Avoid assumptions and stereotypes. They're all, like I said, we some of these stereotypes and assumptions have been built in. I have them about different people and things. I have them. A lot of these assumptions and stereotypes have helped me to navigate and stay alive. So, but are any of these damaging? Are any of these toxic assumptions? Use of clear and simple language. What may be clear and simple to you might not be to that next person. So having that, stepping outside of yourself and asking, Claire, do you understand what I'm trying to communicate to you? Because they may not be. Some people oftentimes will just nod their head so you can shut up. So asking, because we want to clearly communicate, not just with the people we're helping, but our coworkers as well. Showing respect and empathy. That's everything that we do. So question, in what ways, another question, a new person, in what ways do you think you can personally improve your cultural communication?
I think like asking someone to give an example of, I don't know, how they might apply something that maybe I'm giving an example of or sharing a concept about.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else? Any examples of how we can improve our cultural communication?
Be curious. Just be curious.
Be curious. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? Great tips, by the way.
Hi there, Armand. This is Claire. I think also being honest with ourselves, especially if we're talking to someone from a different, clearly from a different culture, to humble ourselves and to be like, you know what, I'm not really aware of this, or can you teach me? And not and like shrinking that power dynamic that might be present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And real quick, you just reminded me of something. So I do a lot of human sex trafficking awareness training, prevention, and across the nation. And there's oftentimes people who really want to help survivors, and the way they're communicating is on a condescending of sorts, because they even with unconsciously knowing they're talking down upon them. And I often tell them to help them, because they don't mean to, right? It's just they have in their mind, this is a victim, I'm helping them, so that savior syndrome comes in, and they're now talking down. And this the person they're talking to, the survivor of sex trafficking, is looking at them as if they're the idiot. And why are you talking to me like that? So there's a misconnection when there's a life that needs to be saved right here. So I tell the people, the advocate, I tell them, in your mind, try to look at this individual and talk to them like you would talk to your sister, your mother. How would you talk to them? A woman that you actually cared about in your life right now, how would you talk to them? Because that is not the same way. And I found that really helps the person to now have a clear communication with that individual. Anybody else before we move on?
But it's almost sort of touches, I think, a little bit on what you were just saying. But in the last few years, I've been really trying to talk less and listen more. And it's been a really interesting journey in doing that, and really looking at how my white privilege plays into that. And yeah, it's been a really great awareness.
And Heidi, I love the fact that you're taking the journey. You know, we're all, none of us are perfect. There's not one person on this call right now or in this meeting right now that is perfect, right? So it's acknowledging that and striving to be the best human being we can be. You know, for years, I was in a relationship for 7 years with this girl who used to get so mad at me because I always cut her off, and I would fight that. And it took, this is a long time ago. And now I hear my mom, and I'm like, I've worked on it. Like, she pounded this in my head so much, I worked on it. And I don't think I do it as much, but it took me wanting to consciously work on it to be a better person. And now I hear my mom doing it all the time. I'm like, oh, that's where I got it from. I said that to say this. All these little things that can help us communicate better. Because talking over people, I'm not really listening. I'm not really hearing the words they're saying. I was that person that couldn't wait till I got my turn to make a point. And that doesn't work for me or them, because we don't get anywhere. All right. Thank you for sharing, everybody. Strategies for developing cultural competence. Set yourself up for success. Like I use the example of me asking the youth that I work with, like, who their favorite rapper is. And I didn't just ask them just so I can say, oh, that's who it is. No, I listen to that person, right? I'll go listen to them. If I'm in a situation I can pull it up right then, I'll pull it up right then. And I'm not judgmental all the time. I'm not judgmental. I listen. And one thing that does is just in this example, the one thing that does is now I know what they're putting in their head. And now if I can hear all this rapper that they like is talking about is drugs, 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 I know now I know what this kid is filling their head up. And once upon a time, I was that kid that was filling my head up with these different messages, and it impacted how I acted. So as the adult and the mentor I am now, these little tips can help me. So I'm setting myself up for success. If there's, so I say that's one example, but other things are like, if you're not of that culture, if you're not of that ethnicity, find someone who may be closer to the person you're trying to help or the group you're trying to help, and talk to them And not the talk of like, I'm the person going to the zoo and I want to learn about the iguanas. No, please don't, because sometimes that person that you're asking may take offense. I've been there. Like this isn't a zoo, but genuinely say and explain why you're asking. Say, look, I have this group I'm working with, and I really, really want to help them, but I need to understand more. Can you please help me understand some and then go from there? It's so all on back again, communication rules the nation. How are you presenting this conversation so you can set yourself up for success? Take steps to increase cultural awareness and sensitivity. That once again, there's many classes out there. There's many things you can look at to understand, and especially when it comes to marginalized and highly negatively impacted cultures. A lot of Black and brown cultures that's here in the United States. Come on now, we're in it was this 2035 we're in now, 2024, I think, somewhere around there. We're between 24 and 35 right now. There is 1,001 documentaries you can watch. There's right now, Black History Month just ended. Netflix had a whole page just for this. So if you truly want to increase your cultural awareness and sensitivity and understand, you can. The sources are out there. And I have this, everybody take your pens out. I'm gonna give you this source. It's unbeatable. It's unbeatable. You can use it any time of the day. You ready? All right. It's spelled GOOGLE. Google. So you can Google anything cultural sensitivity about culture, understanding, increasing cultural awareness about boom. So the challenge is on us, and y'all have already accepted the challenge. You wouldn't be here right now. So I'm saying to continue that. Give your staff, if you're the leader of a group, your corporation, your nonprofit, your school, give your staff the resources to do this too. I got it in bold and capital right here. Care enough. Care enough. Care enough for you to take to learn more, care enough to advance more, care enough. Do. All right. Tailoring mentorship ooh, that jumped. Hold on 1 second. All right. Okay. Tailoring mentorship to communities of color. Once again, you guys are we're all intelligent here, and I believe, and I'm gonna assume we're all aware of many of the atrocities, the tragedies, the systemic racism that has impacted communities of color still to this day. It is not over with. It has not ended. The Emancipation Proclamation did not end. It ended a level of slavery. It ended a level, but we still are facing the remnants of these injustices to this day. I just recently went to I was when I was born, for the first 8 years of my life, I was raised in a suburb of San Diego. There was a low income apartments where I was at. My biological father happened to be working in that area, and my family got onto this housing complex in this great neighborhood, very wealthy neighborhood. And I lived there till I was about 8 years old. Went to elementary school out there, went to kindergarten out there, and then my dad's job switched and I moved back to the hood, back to where my parents grew up. It was like a night and day shift in the same city, like on the freeway, 15 minutes away. And the birds went away. It seemed like the grass was no longer there. It was replaced with concrete. We weren't getting our bread from Alpha Beta was the store then, but we weren't getting our bread from the Lucky's or the grocery store. It was go to the corner liquor store, go to Horseshoe and get your bread. The schools, I didn't realize it as much then, but I did as time went by and I could compare the two, and they're just different. One is neglected still to this day, underserved, under-resourced. So understand that if you work in these communities, have that understanding. tailor your mentor. Yes, you might have to be, you might have to adjust the way you educate, adjust the way you handle this population, and understand you may have these kids in your class, but what is it? What we're dealing with generations of trauma, generations of poverty, of mental health issues that are right there. So there may be a different level that you need to adjust for this youth. I was in, like, when I told you I was a homeless youth, I was going to a middle school here in the hood. I was going to this middle school. I was homeless and acting up every single day in class. If I was even in class, I was a little baby terrorist at that school. Not one time did a counselor, a teacher ask me if I was okay. Where are you sleeping? Are you hungry? And I was hungry and I didn't know where I was going to sleep. Of course, I couldn't concentrate. So things like this are going on. So understanding those communities that you're dealing with, and unfortunately, many communities of color are on that, by way of systemic stuff like redlining, they are in these underserved communities. So understanding those challenges, and there's enough knowledge out there. I gave you that secret website called Google. Trust me, it's all there. So adapting your mentorship style and getting some lived experience experts like myself, they're out there. Lean upon them as the experts they are to help you to do your job even better. And I'm going to get this slide thing right. It's not me, I promise. Oh, there we go. Go back. No sneak peeks. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to, through my work too, I primarily have worked in communities of color, Black and brown communities, but through those communities, especially in San Diego, as diverse as a city we are, there's not a nationality, there's not an ethnicity that has not been under my tutelage that I have not been able to reach. And honestly, I owe a lot to I don't neglect or cast off hip hop, the culture. I think that music has been able to transcend ethnicities and like nothing other. And just even understanding that one piece, if you are working in marginalized at-risk communities, every culture is tapped in with that one music form. And it sounds like, oh, it's just a music. I don't even like that music. I don't listen to that music. But if you just understood that there's a little knowledge of it, that communication through hip hop can help you reach so many people of all ethnicities, white, Black, brown, purple, green. So yeah, I want to thank you all for giving me the helping hand that I needed growing up and being, this right here. Wow. So there's a young man that's in this picture. I'm not going to point him out all the way, but this was sent to me last week via Instagram. And he told me I'll read it out loud. I just wanted to thank you for giving me the helping hand that I needed growing up and being a huge role model to me, bro. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. You came in my life at the right time and changed my life completely. I went from a kid who would bring my gun everywhere. I go to a man who don't need a gun. I owe you big time, fam. So that kid is in this picture. He's now 24. I had him when he was 16. And he would come to my class, and I didn't know it at the time. I don't search people's backpacks, but he'd have a pistol on him every day. And now he's about expected to be a father of a second child, about to get married, been maintaining his job for the past 2 years. And he wrote this to me out the blue. And I said, that's been 10 years since I entered into this man's life. So also understanding that what you're doing, why this is so important, the seeds that you are planting in the lives, you don't know when and how they will sprout, but just keep doing the work that you are doing. There's several other examples on here. I can't see my folks. I don't know if Precious is still on here, but she might know a couple of these people that come across her way in her job. One of these kids was her kid that not her kid, but somebody from her school that she connected with me. He was 12 years old in middle school. He's still with me today. This weekend, he's going to be giving a presentation on fentanyl awareness to other kids as a 17-year-old boy right now, So it does work. we can do it. Use that Google, use your lifelines, use your resources, and get as culturally competent as possible, because you having that is the difference between life and death for an at-risk youth. And this next slide is going to come up. Okay, as questions, comments, feedback, I'm going to take this off of my shared screen because I want to, hopefully there's some faces and some people up here, because I have been doing this and I don't know who I'm looking at, and I want to see some people. All right. Hello, people. There they go. There's those wonderful faces. Questions, comments. My best friend in the world is right here too. She don't know she's my best friend in the whole world. And if she has another best friend, then we got to get rid of them. Questions. Yell at me. Alan has something to say. He's been waiting to yell at me. Go ahead, Alan.
Sure. So, I'm here because as a clinical supervisor, I help guide a whole new generation of therapists. And being culturally competent around that is really important to me, because, this is the whole generativity of being an older person, right? Passing it down, passing that torch on, like you said. So it's really important to me that I stay current and as competent as possible and curious. So to me, being competent involves staying current and being curious. Those are my 3 C's when it comes to cultural competency for me. And so I'm just here to learn and soak up. I try and get back into kind of that childhood mode of just being in the experience and soaking it up and absorbing the information and the wisdom that people around you can in that they can give you. This is a form of enculturation for me. Um, I've lived my whole life in color, in communities of color. I find the homogeneity of the all white suburbs to be a little unsettling. And I learned that back in the early 90s when my very first job with the County of San Diego was at 47th and Market. And your very first day, they sit you out there and my supervisor, a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant African-American woman, I would like to give some praise to, Donna Rose, forgot more about how to deliver services to community than I'll ever learn. The very first thing she had us do was go sit in the lobby. So there I am, first day at work, wearing my little tie, and then I'm sitting there in that lobby looking way too white for my own good. And I was, my mind was not awake yet. I was on the path, but I was not there. And I'm still not there. It's a journey, not a destination. But, and then at the end of the day, she sat there and she debriefed with all of us. How did you feel? What was going on? What was the experience? What were you hearing? What were you smelling? What were you feeling? And then at the end of it all, she was like, I never want you to forget what it means to be on the other side of those windows.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought she was a brilliant woman, and she had so much to do with opening up the curiosity and widening my vista to take in the experience and wisdom and trauma of everybody around me. And so, I know you're part of the San Diego community. I'm still here in Webster. I live in Webster, and I just really, I don't know. I love San Diego. I love Central San Diego. I love the diversity of it. I drive around and I see the trauma of it. And I just really want to make sure that I'm still always opening myself up to being the best torch passer that I can be, so to speak.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. So yeah, you being from San Diego, so I moved from Rancho Penasquitas as a little kid to 32nd and Market. Big cultural shift really fast. Yeah. Anybody else, please? I know we're all brilliant here, but if there's anything I can add of value, any questions, please. There's nothing I don't or won't answer. It doesn't even have to be about this topic.
Armand, I have a question. And I may have missed this in your presentation, so I apologize if I missed it. Considering what you experienced as a child in middle school and through high school, and now being the man that you are, is there one or two particular things that another adult did or said to you that had a great impact in terms of you still being alive and some of your homies not being alive? And not making an assumption that that person was a teacher or a therapist or whatever, but what is it that they did or said, so that we in this space, no matter what our job is, we can kind of envision ourselves as mentors, right? Because being a mentor is not our job. That's more of a calling. And so I'm just curious to know what a mentor did or said to you.
So if there was, as I look at, reflect on my life, and I've been built for what I'm doing now, and God has had his hand, I don't know, God in my life has had his hands on me since I was a baby. And there's not a moment I could say, oh, I can identify now. So there may have been, but unfortunately, I know the importance of mentorship because of my lack of, and my friend's lack of not having a mentor. And that underscores its value to me. That was missing. And you said, one thing you just said was what helped me to still be alive. I beat the odds. My friends are all gone. And we were right there with each other, training each other. I was a 15-year-old with 15-year-olds training me on how to be a man, a brother, because there was not that mentor. My whole time I didn't have a principal, Jackson Hubbard. I didn't. I went through, I graduated high school. I have a sixth grade, but I say I have a sixth grade education through San Diego Unified. That is the last time I can really look back and say I actually learned something. They would just pass me along. And, when I was in middle school, I had straight F's and D's, no summer school. I didn't have to take a class over, but they kept passing me because they knew that kid's going to prison. And I ended up in prison or dead, like many of the kids I went to school with. So I say that to say it's important. And because I'm a lucky one, it's 50-50 chance. Out of 8 of us, I'm one of 4. And even out of that 4, one of us is in recovery right now. He's been a bad alcoholic for the past 15 years. It's like he's been a walking zombie. I had a 50-50 chance of living. So let that be the urge and the push to go and get this cultural competency. There isn't a bunch of lived experience. There are a bunch of lived experience experts that would go, but they're not in the one ads right now. There's not a bunch of job postings. There's not a bunch of schools that looking for lived experience mentors that will pay them to come in right now. So we need all of us, no matter where you come from, to understand the population you're working with and to go do the work. But to answer your question, no, unfortunately, there was not one adult I could say as a youth who said that right word to me, that gave me some guidance. And the adults that were in my life taught me how to do the wrong stuff. They were adults. It was adults that told me how to send that stuff in the mail. It was adults that told me how to go out there and hustle on the streets. It was adults that told me and taught me directly and that I watched. So yeah, it's a need, a desperate need.
Thank you.
A 911 state of emergency. I'm tired of burying lives. I know you are too. I use the name Jesse, but you know who I'm talking about for that young man that called me. That was your kid. You feel me? Questions, comments? Seeing head nods and smiles. Say something. I don't even know what time. I don't know how long I am, Nicole. You're gonna have to cut me off. I don't have nothing.
No, you have some time. You're okay. You have some time.
Okay, I'm here.
I have a question, and I don't know if you remember me, but we've worked together. You were probably 16 or 17 in Fashion Valley.
Oh no. Whoa,
I
that's
mean, my first name, but I go by Claire. And
I
you might
thought
start
you
with John
were
too.
I thought you when you started, I thought you were saying about to say like through this work. Like we worked together. No, you took me back. You said
I took
fashion.
you way back.
Oh, we ran that mall. Oh my God.
We
Go.
did. I'm gonna say this publicly because this is my first time talking to you as like proper adults now. But even back then, you had a way about you that was just like this kid's cool. This kid's cool. So yeah, I just wanted to tell you that. But anyway, well, I'm also in the mental health field, and I still live right here in the kind of Paradise Hills area, real close to where we went to high school and things like that. I think like I'm like a grade in front of you or whatever. um but um but I wanted to ask a question, like, in my different therapy careers, I feel like, being a woman of color myself, being immersed in the 90s and early 2000s hip hop, and working with the different circles that I have worked with, it's like I feel like I've been able to connect with a different type of youth, like maybe we're talking like teens, generational, gang involvement, like all the whole nine that we had here in PH and everything like that. Um, and what could be, um, there would be times where maybe even some of my colleagues would talk to me. It's like, oh man, like this client's is a real tough one to get through, and this and that, and we're all coming in trying to do the best that we can. What would your advice be if like a provider is like who maybe doesn't share the same kind of community experiences that perhaps we do, or perhaps that client does? And is that like is that a stalemate? And what could they do to maybe like shake up the vibe, or like just switch things up to really show like not come off too goofy, like to show the person I'm really here. I'm for real here for you. Like, what is that? What is maybe that ingredient that could be helpful?
So it may be a stalemate. It may be that standoff. I really want people to reflect on, and I think it's good for them in their life. It, do you want to do what you're doing? Or are you burnt out on the job you're at? Do you want to work with this population? Did you just get placed there? Is this just a paycheck for you? There are many people that are in that situation who, regardless, there's nothing that'll shake them up. They're not looking for the shaking up. So it's a self-reflection. And honestly, if they really did self-reflect, they could make a better decision for their life, because they're probably not happy if they're in a situation that they, like that. But what I would recommend for somebody who does want to help, who is just finding the cultures they're working with challenging, like I mentioned earlier, you got to seek that help. And there are people who will help you, that want to help you. That I'm not the only one out there. If someone, you understand the population, if that person will come to you and say, well, can you help me understand? But you can't make anybody do anything. We can't make our children do anything. We can't make anybody outside of yourself do anything. So that person has to want it. And if they don't want it, maybe they need to relook at where they're working. There are tons of jobs out there. And I'm sorry, I'm just really, especially because we're dealing with a vulnerable population. And I want the people who are helping these youth to want to help these youth. And I want to go back to, you didn't ask this question, but you made a statement about me at 16. And you said something, I had something to cool or whatever it was. You said I was the most awesome person on the planet. Now you might not have said that, but something like that. But what I want to say is you're right. No, real. We were great kids. Me and my group that's not here, brilliant. in our own way. We had ideas, we were crafty, we were very intelligent, we had swag, we had stuff. Had that mentor and that person reached us, I really wish they did. It would have changed the trajectory of our life. And a little tie into Miss Precious's question too is, had that person been there, that had seen that value in us, but oftentimes these kids are rejected by society, rejected, but no, skilled. I was an amazing artist in ninth grade. I was at Helix High School and I was drawing it was graffiti art, but it was great. I got in trouble for that. They called my mom and got mad at my mom because she defended my art and said, I love this art. They labeled her a gang mom because she liked my art. They didn't understand it. I wish that if they put me in art class and said, "Whoa, shoot, man, you like to doodle?" So yeah, that piece, because we weren't monsters. I was a good kid, and when I said we took over that mall. At one point, one person got 9 of my friends jobs at that mall, and we were at Macy's and Cinnabon. Alfred, I don't know which one we worked at together, but we were maneuvering. It might have been Cinnabon, it might have been Macy's, but we had a whole.
Cinnabon.
It was Cinnabon? I thought so. From Cinnabon, I talked my way into working at Macy's. And at 16 years old, I was in women's shoes, selling women's shoes with a bunch of adults who this was their career. But I could talk. And I was making their money. They were mad at me for making the money I was making in there. And then we ended up, we just were young with no guidance and on our own. And, one of us got a bunch of us jobs. And next thing you know, we have the best clothes at school and we're getting best dressed because we know how to get at Macy's. But anyway, yes. Yeah, Cinnabon. I thought it was Cinnabon. Nicole, you unmiked or unmuted.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I wanted to just comment on Miss Precious Hubbard's comment. She said, I have had Armand come speak to students at my middle school. He is authentic and creates an environment that is not so formal, conversation starters that are not so formal. Any folks who come to my site without lived experience are only successful when they do the same. If you come off as cold, too formal, and know-it-all, kids put a wall up. I just want to comment on that as well. It is not only very true, but it doesn't matter what you look like. If I come in with a group of Black students and I'm a Black girl or a Black woman, and I stand in a space as if I know it all, they're going to humble me very quickly. And so I'm glad that she brought that up. And I'm also glad that you're speaking on mentorship. It is extremely important in our neighborhoods. And honestly, it crosses culturally, but we know for our youth, it is something that is absolutely necessary. Thank you for continuing to do the work and for having the outcry that the work needs to be done. It needs to be done differently. I like how you said, I can't come out off something that came out in 1986. I disagree somewhat. I think, some of the stuff that we grew up on and our elders grew up on is very, very necessary, but there has to be a very healthy balance in that we have to see them for who they are. And if we're going to introduce our life, our perspectives, the things that made us whole, we have to do it very creatively, so that they don't feel stifled. So I just wanted to add that piece, and then also add what Miss Precious Hubbard said as well.
Thank you. And this for clarity on my end, because yes, look, even like that fact that I know a lot of these rappers and stuff from our younger days in the 80s and the early 90s, love them. But we get some adults, we'll get into that. We'll shun off the new school. We'll shun off what they're listening to. We'll talk down about this, not what we had. And then now the kids not, but instead of trying to, sometimes we get in position. Now, so I have been in this position where early on where I expected this kid to kind of come to my level and come instead of me to really reach him. Let me go to where he or she is at. That's kind of more where I'm at. Like, what are you listening to? And I don't like most of it, but I gotta listen. And it helped, and it's, you know, some of a lot of it's good too. I love rap, all generations. And I'm like, dang, all he's talking about is murder. But then I also know that's what you're filling your head up with. Murder, 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 murder. And I wonder why you have violence issues on top of your environment. So it's helping me understand who I'm working with too, you know?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
and it's needed, absolutely, absolutely needed to be able to speak their language. They have their own set of language and we got to learn it.
Right. I mean, and think when we were kids, we were coming up with new words regularly because we didn't want our parents to understand, and we for sure didn't want the police to understand what we were talking about. So we
Mhm.
purposely were creating new language. That didn't stop, you know. Like, you know, thank you, E40, for giving me a book a book of words to use that no one understood. I used them all.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
now that could be that, and us not understanding the word and the use of the word could be critical to us stopping and de-escalating violence in the classroom. You didn't
Yeah,
know that they were about to fight. They said this. You're like, I didn't even know what they were talking about. You know, and
facts.
when I do the human trafficking training and stuff, and there's certain indications that people are saying, but if you don't understand the terminology, it's flying right over your head, you know?
Absolutely.
So yeah, this back
Absolutely.
again, constantly at constant education and making sure we are culturally competent with who you're working with. Now, you don't need to know everything about everybody necessarily. That'd be cool, but who are you working with? And the more you can understand that population, the better you're gonna be at your job. The better you're gonna be. All right.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Alan. We jumping in here. This is a family talk. We cut each other off and everything. Let's go.
Well, just kind of, coattailing on what Nicole was saying and about engaging people. Um, one of the things going along with being curious for me was the first thing you got to do to really be curious to receive what's going to come is you got to get humble.
Mhm.
You gotta be willing to admit, I don't know this. I'm in a learner mode. Um, especially with I'm just going to speak to my whiteness here. Being I had the best closet to go hide in as a gay male, right? The white one. So the one that can make me visible, like invisible again. And other people don't have that privilege. They don't have the power or the privilege to become invisible with their minority status or their cultural difference or anything like that. So I got really humbled by that when I started working with people of color who had other experiences around that, because I really realized how, even though it was bad, I still had it better.
Right.
But I had to get really humble to receive that and to not get my back up, not dig my feet in, to be open to what I was going to receive from people. And so I would just say, keep it humble, keep it curious.
Keep it humble, keep it curious. Hashtag that. There we go. Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, that's just, I think that's across the board with life, just being humble, not thinking you know everything, including me and believe me, I started off with who is presenting to you. And that's a question we should ask as we're taking in people's information. And I kind of went deeper on that intro on who I was, so you could kind of feel and understand me a little more before I'm the expert. No, and we learn from each other. I don't know everything. You got my opinion, and we don't have to agree on everything. We are human. I don't think there's not two people on here that agree on 100% of everything. So respecting us for our differences, respecting us for our uniqueness and who we are, and we got to have that mentality. And that's the only way we're going to advance in the work we do, in life, in relationships, period. That mutual respect for each other. Nicole.
Oh no, but I did have a message. I think that she stepped out, Miss Precious Hubbard, but she said, "Rich journey, good and bad. Thanks, Armand. I love you, dude." We are ending. Do you any more questions, comments?
Nicole, I was not in the chat. Did I miss anything else? I know
You
you've
did
been
not. No, you did not. I got you.
perfect.
Did anybody else want to say any closing remarks before I let Armand do the closing remarks? I have a couple of housekeeping right before we end. Any other questions, comments?
Zach Stones, Melissa Marquez, Denise Von Rotz. Sorry if I messed your name up. Rachel Smith, Bailey Arthur. They're sleeping. They were just here. They got crossword puzzles.
Not sleeping, just shy.
Oh, well, thank you, Denise, for speaking up.
Denise, did you
Zach
say
says thanks.
Did she say sad?
No, she said just shy.
Oh, okay. I thought she said
Just
sad. I
shy.
was like, we about to wrap around you, Denise. We don't want nobody to leave here sad. Angelica, she put a heart real quick. Don't call my name. Go ahead. Up. There we go. There we
I
go.
love it. Love it. Love it.
Here we
Bailey
go.
says not sleep, also shy. Thank you. Thank you for responding.
And that's me
Rachel,
being, this addressing. Thank you all for listening to me and my opinions. Okay. Thank you.
also your expertise, we appreciate it. Thank you for coming. Quick housekeeping. When you guys log out, please go and fill out your evaluations. If you have not done so for your first session, please go back and fill out the one for your first session and fill one out for this session as well. Sandy, thank you. She says, this has been incredibly informative. Thank you so much for this presentation. Rachel says, I'm here. Thank you so much for sharing. And Alan said, thank you for being here and sharing. Please go fill out your evaluations. If you are San Diego local, tomorrow we are having a cultural fair. It is at the Brick in Point Loma. It is not where we had it last year. It is at a new location. It is inside. I have been, it is beautiful. Some of our vendors are absolutely amazing. We're gonna have some really great entertainment from a dance program called K-pop. We have a really awesome, DJ. It's going to be really amazing. So please, it's if you've already signed up, I think it came in, it was an additional $25. If you have not gotten your ticket, it is not too late. You could also buy a ticket at the door. Please come and support. We have been working really hard on it. Where do you find the eval? So when you log off of here, it should come straight to you. I think it's on your post. If it's not, it's going to come to you on your email. So as soon as you log off of this, go and check your email and the eval should be there. But I believe they said upon ending this call, it will lead you to a page and you'll be able to do it from there. But if not, it should come in your email.
And I accept only A's. I'm triggered by D's and F's. If you heard my story, I'm gonna see these surveys. No, I'm not. But yeah, only A's accepted.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Oh, here we go. Victoria says you can find the link on your dashboard next to the title of the presentation. Thank you. Next to the dashboard. And I think that came in our email as well. I think about 30 minutes before we got into this, you got an email and it should be there. Thank you, Victoria. Any other questions? Thank you guys for participating. You guys decided to come and I love that for you and for us. I will see you guys soon. Feel free to log off and log back on in a couple minutes. You have a couple minutes to just relax before our closing speaker and our closing remarks at 3:15.
Thank you, Armand. You keep doing your good things, and I'm sure I'll run into you in the future. Oh no, you're muted.
I said, okay. I said, let's link up. We started at Cinnabon, now we're here.
I love that.
You might remember John Marquez too.
I do.
Yeah, and we have a 19-year-old.
And you're married.
Yeah, rolling around, and I mean he left for work already, but
that's awesome.
I'm gonna tell him.
Yeah, that's awesome. Small world. That's funny. Nice stuff. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Armand. You did excellent as always.
Thank you.
I hope you come back next year.
If you guys will let me, I'm here.
Of course. Yeah, I think so. Oh, Denise came back in the room.
Bye, you guys. Bye.
Bye. Okay.